You are being manipulated by your own brain, trapped in a mental prison built on the illusion of control. But the key to liberation lies in a 2,500-year-old Chinese philosophy known as Taoism. Most people live in a state of constant friction, white-knuckling their way through life, unaware that their desperate attachment to specific outcomes is the very thing sabotaging their success. This is not mere motivational rhetoric, it is a neurological reality. Researchers at the University of Chicago found that the defining trait of top-tier executives wasn't raw IQ, but the ability to remain emotionally detached from results, a skill known as Wu-Wei. When we want something too desperately, our brains trigger the amygdala, entering a fight-or-flight mode that cripples rational decision-making and creative problem-solving. We become like the person who pushes away love through desperation, or the investor who loses everything through panic. Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, observed that the greatest force in the universe is water, because it does not fight obstacles, it flows around them, eventually wearing down the hardest stone through persistence and adaptability. This power of detachment is visible in the story of a businessman who lost his entire empire in the 2008 crisis, only to rebuild a greater fortune by shifting his focus from the destination to the process. Science confirms this. Harvard neuroscientists discovered that those who practice detachment actually have a 40% smaller amygdala and a more developed prefrontal cortex, leading to higher serotonin and lower cortisol levels. By mastering the art of as-if, the water principle, and the detachment of the ego, you stop fighting the current of life and start using its momentum. True power isn't found in holding on tight. It is found in the courage to let go, allowing you to flow like water, adapt like the wind, and finally achieve the relevance and peace you have been chasing. The architecture of the mental prison. To understand the depth of our entrapment, we must first look at the invisible bars. The human brain is a survival machine, not a happiness machine. For millions of years, our ancestors survived by being hyper-attuned to lack and threat. If they didn't have enough food, they felt the sting of anxiety. If they were rejected by the tribe, they felt the cold shadow of death. In the modern world, this ancient hardware is still running, but it has misidentified the targets. Today, a missed promotion or a slow-loading website triggers the same biological alarm as a saber-toothed tiger. We have become victims of our own evolutionary success. This programming error leads us to believe that the more we stress about a goal, the more likely we are to achieve it. We confuse anxiety with caring and obsession with commitment. But Taoism suggests that this hyper-attachment is actually a form of spiritual and mental friction. Imagine trying to catch a bird by lunging at it. The bird will always fly away, but if you sit still and hold out seed, the bird comes to you. This is the paradox of control. We live in a society that worships the grind, yet the most elite performers, the 3% who seem to have luck on their side, are actually practicing a form of effortless action. They have learned to silence the ego's screaming demand for immediate results. When you look at the University of Chicago study of 10,000 executives, the data is clear. Those who could detach from the what if and focus on the what is were the ones who navigated crises successfully. They didn't view a loss as a personal failure, but as a data point. This shift in perspective moves the seat of power from the reactive amygdala to the sophisticated prefrontal cortex. It turns you from a victim of circumstance into a master of strategy. The physics of water and the Wu-Wei method. Lao Tzu's obsession with water was not poetic, it was an observation of physics. Water is the softest substance, yet it can carve the Grand Canyon. It is humble, always seeking the lowest ground, yet it sustains all life. When we apply the principle of Wu-Wei, literally non-doing or effortless action, we are not being lazy. Rather, we are aligning our efforts with the natural flow of reality. Think of a sailor. A sailor does not control the wind, nor does he try to fight it. He adjusts his sails to use the wind's power to reach his destination. Most of us are trying to row against a hurricane, exhausting our spirits until we eventually capsize. The art of as-if is the first practical step in readjusting your sails. It is a psychological hack that bypasses the brain's threat detection system. If you walk into an interview needing the job to survive, your body language, tone, and micro-expressions will scream danger to the interviewer. But if you act as if you already have the job and don't need the validation, your brain stays in a state of social safety. You become charismatic, fluid, and sharp. You are no longer defending your ego, you are engaging in a task. This is the neuroplasticity of detachment in action. By repeatedly practicing this, you are actually shrinking the amygdala. You are physically rewiring your brain to be less reactive. This leads to what Stanford researchers called adaptive neuroflexibility. Your brain becomes like a high-end suspension system on a car. It can hit the bumps of life without the chassis of your identity rattling to pieces. You begin to see failure not as a traumatic wall, but as a different path opening up, the transformation of the self through emotional polarity reversal. In the West, we are taught to suppress negative emotions or think positive, but suppression is just another form of attachment. You are attached to the idea that you shouldn't feel bad. This creates a feedback loop of anxiety. Taoism invites us to do the opposite, to invite the panic or the failure to tea. When you stop resisting the current can no longer drag you under. This is the secret held by the 3% of the world's most successful people. They don't have fewer problems, they just have a different relationship with them. They have detached from the need for life to be easy. When you desire the lesson that comes from failure as much as you desire the reward of success, you become invincible. You are no longer a slave to your moods or your circumstances. This leads us to the ultimate liberation, the death of the ego. The ego is the part of us that believes it is a separate entity that must be protected, promoted, and defended at all costs. It is the ego that makes us want to be right instead of being well. Every time you argue with an idiot to prove your intelligence, you are leaking power. Every time you hold a grudge, you are drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Taoism teaches that the irrelevance we fear is actually our greatest strength. When you realize that you don't need to leave a mark to be worthy, you are finally free to act with total sincerity. You do the work for the sake of the work. You love for the sake of loving. Paradoxically, this is when your life starts to leave the deepest mark of all. You become a living legend, not because you sought fame, but because you were the only one in the room who wasn't trying to be one. You become the mountain, firm, unmoving, yet providing a home for everything that grows. The neuroscience of the void. The Harvard and Yale studies mentioned are not outliers. They represent a growing body of evidence that letting go is a biological imperative for high performance. The production of serotonin in those who practice detachment isn't just a mood boost, it's a structural necessity for long-term health. High cortisol levels caused by constant attachment to outcomes literally melt the connections in your brain. It makes you dumber, slower, and more prone to disease. Detachment is the antidote. It is the secret code that allows you to maintain the curiosity of a child with the wisdom of a sage. This is the emotional polarity reversal in full effect. By celebrating uncertainty, you turn the unknown, the brain's greatest fear, into a playground, the brain's greatest source of dopamine. You stop asking, what if it goes wrong, and start asking, what will I learn when it changes? This is the essence of the Tao. It is a path that has no end because it is the path itself. Every obstacle you face is not a wall, but a stone in the river. You can choose to crash against it and break, or you can choose to be like water, flow around it, and find the deep, quiet pools of wisdom on the other side. As you move forward from today, ask yourself, what am I carrying that is too heavy? The answer is usually your expectations. Put the weight down, walk lightly. The world will not fall apart if you stop trying to hold it together. In fact, that is precisely when the world begins to work in your favor. You don't need to control the universe, you just need to be part of it. This is the way. This is the Tao. This is the end of your mental prison and the beginning of your true power. Practical alchemy, the Tao in the modern world. The implementation of these 2,500-year-old principles doesn't require a mounting retreat or a silk robe. It requires a radical shift in how you handle your Monday morning emails and your evening reflections. We often mistake detachment for indifference, but the two are worlds apart. Indifference is a lack of passion. Detachment is a surplus of wisdom. A detached person can work harder than anyone else because they aren't wasting energy on the anxiety of the result. They are all in on the effort, but all out on the expectation. This is the water principle applied to productivity. If a project fails, the water doesn't sit and mourn its lost identity as a project manager. It simply shifts its state and moves toward the next opening. This prevents the what the hell effect in psychology, where one mistake leads to a total collapse of discipline. By practicing the art of as if, you are essentially performing a daily software update on your personality. You are choosing a version of yourself that is congruent with your goals, rather than a version that is a slave to your past traumas. This is why the Yale study showed such a staggering decrease in panic attacks. The participants stopped being attached to a life without fear and instead became detached observers of their own physiology. When you can watch your own heart race without the ego saying, "I am dying," the heart naturally slows down. This is the ultimate negotiation success secret mentioned by the Stanford behavioral psychologists. The person who is willing to walk away from the table always has the most power at the table. The ego as the ultimate bottleneck. Everything we struggle with, burnout, toxic relationships, financial stress, is a symptom of a bloated ego trying to micromanage reality. The ego wants a predictable universe where it is the hero, but reality is chaotic, indifferent, and vast. When these two collide, the ego suffers. Taoism suggests that instead of trying to make reality more like your ego, you should make your ego more like reality. This is the detachment from the ego technique. When someone insults you, the ego wants to retaliate to save face. But if you have no face to save, if you have detached from the need for others to see you as superior, the insult has nowhere to land. It is like throwing a punch at the wind. You remain well, while the other person remains right and exhausted. This is where the 60% higher resistance to cortisol comes from. You aren't suppressing the stress, you are simply not providing a landing pad for it. This is the secret that only 3% of people naturally develop, the realization that your importance is not a fixed quantity to be defended, but a flow to be experienced. When you let go of the need to be somebody, you gain the ability to be anybody the situation requires. You become the ultimate adaptive neural machine. You can be the fierce negotiator in the morning and the compassionate listener in the evening without any internal conflict because you aren't attached to a static self. The final liberation, choosing relevance through letting go. We spend our lives building monuments to our existence, resumes, bank accounts, social media profiles, fearful that without them we are irrelevant. But the Taoist masters laughed at this. They knew that the most relevant thing in the world is the air, which is invisible and has no ego, yet without it, everything dies. To be truly relevant is to be useful to the process of life itself. When you let go of the outcome of your life, you finally start living it. You stop treating your days as steps toward a goal and start treating them as the goal itself. This is the emotional polarity reversal applied to time. You stop fearing the end because you have fully inhabited the middle. The businessman who lost everything in 2008 didn't just get lucky on his second try. He was simply finally light enough to fly. His first empire was a burden of attachment. His second empire was a playground of process. This is the choice before you today. You can continue to carry the weight of your expectations, your past failures, and your ego's demands, or you can put them on the ground. You can choose to be the rock that breaks or the water that flows.
The science is in, the ancient wisdom is clear, and the path is open. The only thing standing between you and the secret code of the human brain is your own grip. Open your hands, let go of the illusion of control, become the water. The path of the Tao doesn't lead to happiness, the path is the happiness, and it starts with the very next breath you take, the very next decision you make without fear, and the very next moment you choose to be free.